Nope.
Open wide for some soccer!
I can't do it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
Hello. Welcome to Open Wide for some soccer. My name is Seth Vertelny. Joining me this evening, Pablo Maurer, Thomas Floyd. Guys, we got a real sexy matchup to talk about tonight. DC United and Colorado locked horns this weekend.
Colorado is one of the worst teams I've ever seen. I say that as somebody who covered DC United in their fateful 2013 campaign.
They were real bad, and yet DC United got a very fortunate
Needed an own goal.
late own goal. DC United was just kind of, they were like a cat with a ball of yarn. They were just sort of slapping them around, just waiting to get that second goal, and it never came. And of course, Colorado equalized, and yeah, it was almost a disastrous result, but they saved themselves.
Yeah, it was a game where DC United, I feel like, played with a lot of attacking presence, and they looked dynamic going forward, and there was a lot to like about the combination play and the chemistry with some of the attacking pieces. But at the end of the day, they need to start burying some of those chances, and if they hadn't gotten that very fluky own goal at the end, they would have walked away with a completely unacceptable 1-1 draw against last place team in the Western Conference. And at this point, if you are trying to scramble to rack up points in this string of home games to end the season and make a run at the playoffs, you can't afford to have a draw at home against a team like that.
Guys, as always, we're taking your calls. 708-LT-OWFSS. Not much on the docket today, just general DC United stuff. We can talk about the All-Star game, U.S. national team, whatever you guys want to talk about. Give us a buzz.
Yeah, give us something to talk about besides this game, because I think we're only going to get so much mileage out of it, right?
Yeah, not a lot. Not a lot.
I think we might have already
so moving on.
gone as far as we can go with this one.
Yeah.
Well, they obviously needed to win that game. You look at the standings, still in last place, albeit they have several games in hand. We can get into their playoff chances a little bit more in a few minutes, but
yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not a fan of using the phrase "must win," but there is absolutely, I mean, any result other than a win, even a draw, would have been pretty disgraceful at this point. I'm of the opinion that they're not going to make the playoffs for sure, but certainly if they'd lost that game, it would have been, I mean, I'll just use the word catastrophic, even though it doesn't actually have any effect on anybody.
Well, here's the thing. They have these ambitions of making a run at the playoffs that they have held on to all season, because they have this string of, it ended up being 15 of 20 matches at home to end the season. And you do the math, and there is a path, if they rack up a whole lot of points at home, that they could make the playoffs. But they already lost one home game to the Red Bulls, and they're at the point where the margin for error with these home games is virtually non-existent. They need to win almost all of their home games to end the season. They can afford a draw or two, I think, but this is a situation where if they lose another match or two at Audi Field, then it's pretty much over for 2018.
yeah, I think there, like you were saying, Thomas, there were some positives to take out of it. I wanted to get more into Wayne Rooney's overall performance that we've seen in a little bit, but on Saturday, I think we saw a much better performance than certainly we saw in the previous two games. Of course, he got that goal thanks to some shoddy Tim Howard goalkeeping. I think you can probably say the same about DC United's second. Howard seemed to be like the last person in the stadium to react to that deflection. But certainly, again, like we've seen, when United are at their best with Rooney on the field, you can see a really dynamic attacking team kind of forming around him, with him as sort of the focal point, but also involving Areola and Stieber and Acosta, and then they all sort of feed off of each other. And I think, if you're someone who's taking the extremely optimistic viewpoint that they're going to make a run and make the playoffs, you can see sort of the base for a run forming in that those four attacking players.
Yeah, I mean they need over 2 points a game at this point, right? Probably to get to like 45, 50 points.
Yeah, they need to have they need to win almost all their home games, and they can afford a draw or two, I feel like, realistically. But it's a tough ask, and dropping any points against a team like Colorado at home would have made those odds even tougher. Yeah, I mean, as far as Rooney goes, I think not that anybody really ever doubted the guy's commitment. I think it's been sort of like a hallmark of his throughout his career. But he left the field with blood gushing from a massive cut above his eyebrow and a broken nose, apparently, and stood on the sideline and tried to check himself back into the game. So I think that's certainly a good sign for DC United fans. And yeah, I mean, like you've said, I definitely could see sort of like little glimmers between him and Assad and Acosta of something very promising. I just think it's probably maybe a little bit too late this year. Yeah,
and another positive sign I would take out of that game was the performance of Russell Canouse, who was making, I believe, his first start of the season.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he pretty much controlled the center midfield. He made a lot of really good interceptions. He kept the ball moving. I mean, I think he immediately looked like an upgrade on Segura and probably Moreno as well. And I think you can see a partnership between Canouse and Durkin maybe developing over the last few months of the season that could carry them into next season. Hopefully, if Canouse stays healthy and they keep Durkin, that could be a solid, defensive midfield pairing going forward that could allow that front four to really just focus a lot on attacking.
We'll take a question from the audience here. Jesse wants to know how in jeopardy Ben Olsen's job is at this point. Anybody have any input on that?
I think at this point, the expectations have been raised, and Ben has said that himself. If I were to guess, just, based on the amount of time he has been the coach of this team and the fact that they've stuck with him through thick and thin over the years, you would think he would get to the end of this season to get this full stretch of home games. But I can also see a scenario where if they are not racking up the points that they need, then, they could pull the trigger. It's it could go in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that just what I've heard recently, without being specific, because I don't think it's anything reportable. You hear now actual rumblings about Ben losing his job. That hasn't been true in the past. I guess it was always almost sort of a rhetorical question. Now it seems to be an actual issue. And I think to put this out there too, Bruce Arena has just been around a lot. I mean, I've seen him 2-3 different occasions in the past month. At functions relating to DC United. He was there at the stadium opener. I had heard from somebody that he was shopping for a house in this area. Those things are all, I think, of note. Obviously, the guy has a history with the club, and it's not the furthest stretch in the world to think that maybe the club has kind of their eye on him in the long term. But I mean, I agree. I can't see that. My personal opinion is maybe they should give Ben a full year with a team in a spending mode and in a new facility, right? I actually wouldn't be incredibly against the idea of giving Ben till the end of next year, right? But I 100% assure you that that's not going to happen. Thomas, you and I talked about this. I mean, like, Thomas, I think he was of the opinion that like if they make the playoffs, obviously I think Olsen stays, and I think you had even said too, if they get close to making the playoffs, probably he stays.
Yeah, I think this was a bizarre Frankenstein of a season for DC United with this incredibly backloaded home schedule that sort of sets up the team to fail. It's largely out of their control. Obviously, they wanted to get as many games as they could in at Audi Field, and you don't blame the organization for that. But at the end of the day, they dug themselves a hole. It's very hard to get points on the road in MLS, so I don't think anyone was surprised that after this first half of the season with all these road matches that DC United was toward the bottom of the standings. And then to say, well, they have to make up ground with this string of home games, that's difficult because these games are going to be condensed. They're going to have some stretches where they play 3 games in 8 days at home, and that doesn't really give a team an opportunity to succeed and rack up the points at home in the way they would with a more balanced schedule over the course of the season. And they also know that if it takes just one loss, I feel like at this point, to really lower morale and lower belief, and they know they need to essentially pull off a miracle with all of these home games at the end of the season to make the playoffs, and it's just a very difficult circumstance. So I feel like it would be pretty harsh to remove Olsen from his position, even if they struggle over the next couple weeks. I think he deserves a chance at this point to see through the end of this season. And if they completely tank and don't come anywhere near the playoffs, then maybe it's a conversation. But I also think if he can rally the team enough after the introduction of Wayne Rooney with a more complete roster to really make a run at it, then he deserves to come back with a full preseason with Wayne Rooney in the mix, going into a normal season at the new stadium, because it just would be very harsh to judge him on how this season played out, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think part of what is going to help Olsen is something that broke today, which was the story about the new ownership, the new old ownership, really, because Jason Levine is staying. There isn't somebody coming who's going to take over as the majority shareholder. Eric Tohier is out. But I feel like if someone came in like Patrick Soon-Sheng, I don't know if I'm saying that name correctly, but if he came in as this, billionaire owner and took over the majority share of the team, I think it would be more likely that he would want to bring in a new coach and kind of mark the new era with new leadership. And instead, what we saw today is that Levine is staying in place, that a number of investors that are involved with Levine at Swansea City are coming in. But there's going to be more continuity in ownership than maybe we previously thought. And without having that new guy come in charge of the entire operation, I think maybe Olsen has a better chance of keeping his job.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah,
great point, Seth.
Let's talk a little bit about the stadium itself, obviously, because that was a huge talking point, especially in week 1. There were a number of issues, from falling parts of a stadium to people who couldn't get in the stadium to whatever. And then on Wednesday, the scoreboard stopped working and the whole place was flooded, which I think, to be fair, is to be expected when there's like a monsoon, basically.
Field actually was fine.
Yeah, seemed to be good.
Yeah.
And then Thomas and I were at the game on Saturday. Sort of felt like the first opportunity to actually make some observations. Sort of like it's a little broken in, and you can kind of, what are your thoughts right now?
Yeah, to build off what you were saying, the first 2 games felt like strange outliers for various reasons. The first match is, obviously things are going to go wrong. I don't think people expected quite as many things to go wrong, or would
quite as many team employees to get injured.
Right. I was going to say, I don't think anyone would really consider, for a lot of reasons, the way the opening played out was, unfortunately for the club, not acceptable. You don't want a team employee being injured by a falling railing. You don't want fans ditching the match because their mobile ticketing wasn't working. You don't want the Wi-Fi in the press box to be completely down, preventing reporters from writing about your opening match. So there were definitely kinks to be worked out. The second match was delayed an hour and a half, ended up kicking off at 9:30 on a weeknight, so you were never going to get a real, legitimate atmosphere and feel for the stadium out of that game. And then another issue from the opener I didn't mention was the supporters group, the protest and Bara and District Ultras not being a part of it. Bara was in full voice for the match on Saturday, and I felt like it really gave the stadium much more of an atmosphere and recaptured the vibe from RFK in a way that we didn't really get a chance to see, definitely in the opener and also in the second game, just because that one was, the product of the rain and the weeknight and the late kickoff. So this was a nice Saturday night with an almost full stadium with the supporters in full voice. And, I mean, almost full. Yeah, it was.
There's no way there were 19,000 people there, but it's fine.
That's
not a DC United issue. That's an MLS issue, and it's actually a professional sports issue. So
we can talk about this. I feel like the way the stadium has been set up with all of these perks, the clubs and the concourses and the Heineken bar, I think they're ending up with a lot of actual empty seats in the stadium because people are choosing to take in the game from other parts of the venue, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. But that's a little bit of a digression. To sum up, I thought it was a nice Saturday night where, again, it felt like RFK a little bit in terms of just the atmosphere. And you could actually really get the sense that this was starting to become more of a home for the team. And for me, I personally really like the sightlines of the venue. I went and took a lap around the stadium, and it really is true that there's not a bad seat in this stadium. Even if you go up to the very top of the far grandstand where you're the furthest away you can be from the field, from that angle you can sit in these seats where you can have a full view of the Capitol and the Washington Monument, and it's an impressive sight. And I think there's a lot to like about the stadium in terms of the design of it. At least for me, I really think the asymmetrical design where you have no corner of the stadium looks the same as another, and you can really take a picture from the game or see it on TV and immediately know what stadium you're watching, and it's not a cookie cutter design like some of the other newer venues we've seen. And that for me personally is something that I like out of stadium designs. Now, of course, there's still flaws when it comes to the sun shining directly into the broadcast camera and the way the shadows are going to be a factor when they play earlier kickoff. So there's issues as well, but at the end of the day, I felt like there's a lot to like about Audi Field.
Overall, I thought there was some good stuff.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah, it's DC United spokesperson Thomas Floyd with his thoughts on Audi Field. A couple things quickly. I'm going to read, tell you guys something a friend shared with me after the game. A buddy of mine sits in section 111, and I get a text from him as he's leaving the stadium on Saturday, and it just says, on the way out of the stadium, worker in my section is shouting, "Please do not grab the railing. The railing is broken." So that appears to still be an issue.
Was he shouting that the entire game?
No, just as people were leaving and grabbing onto the railing. He was like, "Don't grab onto the railing. Thing's broken."
Okay.
Yeah. Seth, this question comes specifically from you. It's actually from Dan Dickinson. Seth, please compare and contrast the Audi Field opening match to the premiere of Dinesh D'Souza's Death of a Nation. Which one was the bigger disaster? Love, Dan.
So
why don't you give people some background?
So yeah, I went to a movie last night with Lindsay, my wife, and we.
What was the movie?
Not Death of a Nation.
We went to go see Sorry to Bother You, and it was sold out.
Oh.
And so we ended up seeing Blind Spotting.
I've seen both of those. They're both very good.
Yeah, Blind Spotting was good. We liked it.
I feel like Daveed Diggs should get a little Oscar buzz for that, but I'm digressing.
Yeah. So at this theater that we went to in downtown DC, there was a movie premiere going on a movie.
All the big movie premieres are at E Street Cinema.
Yes, this is a very small theater, and when you hear what movie it was, you will understand why this premiere was happening there. It was a little film called Death of a Nation by a director recently pardoned by our president named Dinesh D'Souza. Not pardoned for his crimes against cinema, though he's committed many of those.
Wait, you have not seen the film?
I didn't see the film, but I have to say, over the last day, I've been I went down a rabbit hole of reading reviews of this movie.
Do you see the screen grab of just the credits and credits?
Yeah. I think I'm the one who said that.
Hitler, Mussolini, like Joseph Goebbels, and then it's like Dinesh D'Souza, and then like young Dinesh D'Souza
and young George Soros.
Yeah. So apparently, such luminaries as Donald Trump Jr. and Sebastian Gorka were at the premiere.
Oh, wow.
We did not see them, but upon walking out of our movie, we were greeted by the large cowboy hat of Sheriff David Clark. Also, Dinesh D'Souza was there. A bunch of alt-right trolls, whose names I would probably recognize and faces I didn't. But
I think that's the most important movie premiere in DC since the global premiere of 2001: A Space Odyssey at the Uptown Theater, which is actually something that happened. Yeah, but
did you see there was a 2001: A Space Odyssey exhibit at one of the Smithsonian museums?
Yeah, Air and Space.
They completely replicated.
I'll give you one guess which museum that was at.
Oh, well, it could be a lot of movie memorabilia is in the American History Museum.
True, yeah.
But yeah, recap. Blind Spotting, good.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to bother you. Get your tickets beforehand. Death of a Nation.
5 stars would see again.
5 stars would see again.
I was a little
Donald Trump is
little disappointed in Mussolini's performance, but
Donald Trump is Abraham Lincoln. Is basically what I got from that.
And
the
poster is a work of art.
Yeah.
Why don't let's move on and what I want to do is just sort of grade Wayne Rooney. This is actually one of my editors at the City Paper wanted me to do a piece on this week, and I was like, no, let's wait like 4 or 5 games. But this is a podcast; nobody listens to it, so let's just on this very small sample size talk about Rooney's performance. Thoughts?
I think he has had 2 good matches and 2 lackluster matches.
Certainly didn't cover himself in glory in the New York match, right? Missed a couple good looks.
And Atlanta too was not ideal.
So I
kind of felt like he was on an island in the Atlanta match, and you saw a little bit of this sort of like temper and frustration that he's been known for in the past.
I'll summarize my thoughts real quick. First match, I thought he was great. He comes off the bench. He doesn't really make any flashy plays, but he just does a lot of clever one-touch plays, bring his teammates into the attack, open things up. He did what they needed to do in that match, and I feel like his presence facilitated, at least one of the goals after he came on. Second match against Atlanta was a struggle. He was on an island. When he did get the ball, he didn't do much with it. He had a very bad giveaway that directly led to one of Atlanta's goals, which isn't good. And you could tell he was getting a bit frustrated. And then the game against New York, he came off the bench, and I will say he should have drawn a penalty and a red card. Somewhat inexplicable lack of VAR on this football tackle that Tim Parker made on Rooney as he was alone in on goal. Aside from that, though, he didn't really make much of a difference in that game. He was set up with a golden opportunity late in the match, and his shot was slightly deflected, so it went out for a corner. But you could tell the moment it left his foot, it was going to end up in row Z if it hadn't been deflected. So he didn't really take advantage of that chance. But then most recently, this game against Colorado, he went pretty much the full 90. He didn't get subbed out. He did miss the last couple minutes because of the broken nose, but he showed the fitness to put in a full shift like that. He combined well, like we said earlier, with Acosta on the side and Stieber. He took advantage of his chance, even if Tim Howard's goalkeeping made that a little easier. And I think we saw the player that DC United will be counting on going forward to really be a spark plug in their attack.
Yeah, I think we've seen enough out of these first 4 games, 2 starts, 2 substitute appearances, to suggest that he is going to be a big positive factor. I mean, is he going to live up to all the money they paid for him? I don't know. I mean, a lot of that probably had to do with off-field stuff, but I think we've seen enough that suggests that he still has something left in the tank, and he can still be a big factor, especially in MLS. And he's going through an adjustment period. He's going to have to adjust to the league, adjust to his teammates. They're not going to be as good as they were at Manchester United. I think we saw some of that. We've seen that frustration show a little bit, but as Ben Olsen would say, overall, I thought there was some good stuff out there.
So let's talk, I guess, about maybe the player most impacted directly by Rooney's arrival, who is Darren Mattocks. I guess there was some question before Rooney came of how he would fit in. Maybe Ben would play him up top with Mattocks. It turns out that he's essentially played Rooney up top alone. And I'm sure you guys obviously follow Steve Goff, read his stuff in the Post, and he just had a chat with Darren Mattocks that, I was sort of like, it was striking to me because it was like very obvious in the quotes that Mattocks is not happy. I mean, I don't expect the guy to be happy, obviously, that he's benched for, but it's not one of those things where they are sort of the breaks. I mean, whether you think it's going to be an issue or, it really depends. I mean,
Yeah, to me, it's interesting because Mattocks had this career first half of the season where he has already surpassed his career high in goals, and he's on pace to, probably score like 15, 16 goals this season?
Like probably more goals than any DC United player scored the past 5 years.
He's on pace for a prolific season that will almost certainly not come to fruition because his role is being minimized as Rooney comes in. So on one hand, you really feel for him, and you might wonder why DC United wouldn't make more of an attempt to get both of them on the field at the same time. On the other hand, I feel like when you watch United games, you can maybe sense why they felt like there still needed to be an upgrade up top, because although Mattocks was racking up the numbers, I would say his hold-up play and distribution still left something to be desired. There were missed opportunities. He was a player who, you would walk out of games and he might score a goal, but you would feel like he should have had 2 or 3. And it's a situation where I think Mattocks, based on the interviews he gave with the Post, understands that this is, realistically, he's not Wayne Rooney, and Wayne Rooney makes the team better, and it's not his place to say, well, they shouldn't have gotten Wayne Rooney. But I can also see why he would be frustrated, and for him, I think it's going to be key that when he does come on and get his chances, that he's not straining, because I think that was very evident when he came off the bench late in the Colorado game. He was put in alone on goal and had an opportunity to pick out 2 different teammates who were wide open for a sitter, and instead he took a ill-advised, poor angle shot that was saved by Tim Howard. I don't know if you guys remember this sequence.
Yeah,
it was
tried to nutmeg him.
Yeah, and
which, based on earlier events in the game, you can't totally blame him.
I think I remember every Tim Howard save now because they're so rare.
Oh boy. But to me, that moment, maybe I'm reading into it too much, but it seemed to encapsulate a situation where Mattocks comes off the bench for a few minutes and now is like, I have to score a goal. Yeah. I have to make an impression. I have to, take my chance. And he's, making a poor decision because of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything else in life, right? It's like I'm sure he understands why he's getting a raw deal. The bottom line is he's still getting a raw deal. And as far as like, it is one of those things where if you're Darren Mattocks, I mean, you're having this kind of year, it raises your value as a player too, So it's going to end up costing him money down the line or now or whatever, I mean, it's
Yeah, I am waiting to see if/when the 2 of them are used together, though. I feel like it's
I still think that's their best. I still think that's the best option.
So who would you bench in that?
Yeah, that's
scenario?
the problem. Is right now. I mean,
not Acosta, I guess. Maybe you move Acosta out wide and bench. Oh, God, see, then you.
Asad or Stieber?
I know. Yeah. Well, Stieber probably, obviously, right?
Stieber's been playing well, though.
So is Darren Mattocks.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know. Well, they already have a bit of a logjam because we threw out the possibility earlier of you start Durkin and Canals, which seems like a good look in defensive midfield. And if you do that, you have to take someone out of the equation.
Can you believe this is a last place team? Can you believe this is a last place team?
Well,
literally,
look at the defense.
I was about to say. I mean, look at their outside backs.
They also have no outside backs. Exactly.
Well, and did you see Olsen this week at training threw out names of players who could play outside back, and he said Paul Areola, Russell Canals.
Here we go. Here we go.
And I think we might have a scenario coming up where there's a little experimenting, and we might see Areola get a run at right back so they can fit more attacking players on the field.
A la Nick De Leon.
Oh, my God.
A la Andy Nahar.
A la Andy Nahar.
Areola is the only – did you look at his – I saw a chart of goals plus 90. Goals per 90, I should say. Goals and assists per 90. And he's at maybe right around 1, and he's the only U.S.-born player in the top 15 in MLS.
God.
He's been very good since making his move to central midfield, which
Yeah.
I would not have expected. He seemed like someone who is as true a winger as
honestly, dude,
imagine.
to me, like the key to DC United having any chance of making the playoffs really isn't Rooney. It's Areola. Like if he can continue to thrive, and he can get a couple of his teammates to chip in as well, they might actually have a shot. But
yeah,
I was pretty impressed, and they had all the salaries too, and it's hysterical because Alphonso Davies was on there, and you forget the guy's making $70,000 a year.
Yeah.
I mean, he's about to make
a little
many
more.
millions of dollars a year, but
so good.
Should we move on to some general MLS stuff? I think we've
I really don't care. To be honest with you.
milked about. Well, all right, you're indifferent.
Look, the
Thomas.
last item here says, can DC United make the playoffs? And then in parentheses it says no. So you can probably skip that one.
Yeah. I mean, we've already.
I think. Yeah, I mean, we discussed Sandro. I think they could make the playoffs, but
very briefly,
my guess is they would not.
Very briefly, obviously, we have on here their transfer needs, which all of us are in agreement on. They just need probably 2 outside backs.
Yeah, outside back has been a problem all season, and it's gotten worse as it became apparent that De Leon and Kemp, Kemp's out for the year. De Leon has been out for a couple months now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
was it a hip issue, right?
Yeah, and to me, Fisher and Mora are not starting caliber players. I think maybe the club, when they signed Mora, envisioned him as a potential starter, but I just think it's become clear that he's an MLS backup, and I don't know what they're going to do. They could sign outside back help. I personally have been fascinated by the idea of what this team would look like in, say, a 3-5-2 or 3-4-3, using Areola as a wingback, where he played for Tijuana. I have ideas.
Yeah, this is strictly stuff that's going to appear in your fan fiction.
I was about to say, because
Yeah.
Ben Olsen, as far as I know, has literally never played a 3-in-the-back formation in his 8 years as an MLS coach, so I don't think that's happening.
All right, let's talk about the All-Star game. When it comes to general MLS, there's not a ton going on right now. Seth was, as we mentioned earlier, at the world premiere of Dinesh D'Souza's latest film. I'm just going to say that.
Has he made multiple films?
With no context, right? I mean, I'm just going to tell people you were there.
I was there.
Yeah.
It
was Mike Cernovich's +1.
There's no arguing that fact. Yeah, I was hanging out with Jack Prosobiec.
Yeah, exactly. Impressive. I mean, like everything about Atlanta's been this year, I guess, right? I mean, crazy atmosphere. I read somewhere it was the largest crowd for an All-Star game in the history of any professional sport, with the exception of one time. I can't remember which one it was.
I think it was
the NFL.
I think it was Sebi tweeted that out, and it was an NBA All-Star game that they played in Dallas in the football stadium.
In the Alamo Dome or whatever. No, that's in San Antonio. And
the Jerry World.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, every time Atlanta puts on one of these events, it's a spectacle. And in terms of the match, who cares?
The only thing worthwhile from the match, mentioning from the match, is that Joseph Martinez is just possessed.
Yeah.
Every minute he's on the field in any match, he just looks like he has a violent, angry need to score. Like the ball has personally offended him. I mean, I don't know a lot of players that would have gone in for that header, in a fucking friendly, much less
Yeah.
an all-star game.
I'll throw out an actual soccer observation. Alphonso Davies got run at left back, and I thought he was very good. And I feel like that could be a position as he makes the move up in his career. Maybe that's where he makes his mark.
He's gonna have to find places to fit in. So.
Yeah.
He has gotten terrifyingly good in the last few months.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
sorry,
he
man,
played last season.
Okay, so
Yeah,
like
he was fairly ineffective for
dude,
the
like
last
the
year.
Yeah.
Minnesota game, like what was it? Maybe it was his first goal, but the goal where he like at the very top of the box just changed directions. It was like. One of those things that just like when he like juked and sort of he basically stepped forward and then stepped back and then shot, like it just punched you in the stomach.
Yeah,
and
It was so sudden, like
that goal he scored at Audi Field was just absurd.
that was good God.
Yeah.
He just murdered like
Yeah,
6 defenders.
that goal deserved to not be the very end of a game
Yeah,
where they were losing 3-0.
I'm a huge
Right.
fan of any goal where a defender gets multiple bites at the same dude. And
Yeah.
Chris Durkin like came charging in, got shoved off, like basically Davies threw him aside like a bag of moldy tangerines, and he got up and tried to make another challenge, and he just didn't get anything at it. Like
Canals
incredible.
came in.
Yeah.
And these aren't-
Birnbaum was there.
Yeah, like these aren't schlubs. Like Canals
Yeah.
knows how to win a tackle, and
Yeah.
Davies still just slipped past all of them.
Yeah, none of these guys are Carlos Alberto, but none of them are, like
Davies actually he made 26 appearances last year, only 9 starts, but he had 0 goals and 1 assist.
Right.
I mean, partially it's because he was 16, but
Yeah.
like
It's all a human growth hormone, man.
The leap that he has made this year has been insane.
Yeah, he is a special talent, and it's he's a guy who I think this is absurd that I'm thinking about this. I'm already imagining the 2026 World Cup where Canada finally gets back, and this is the centerpiece of their team, along with like a 46-year-old Dwayne De Rosario.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're still
like the de Guzman brothers or
Right.
whatever, like
yeah. I mean,
Pat Onstad in goal.
let's be honest, they're still probably not making the 2022 World Cup.
Yeah,
Right.
my other takeaway
That
from
just
the
went without saying.
from the All-Star game was the halftime interview with Arthur Blank, where he said something along the lines of, well, we're only averaging 50,000 a game, so we could get another 20,000 in here.
Right.
So there's room for growth. It just shows you like how that club and a certain a few select other clubs in MLS are operating just in a completely different world than say like the Chicago Fire or like
How much do you think it's just not having an inferiority complex?
Right. And like never having owned an MLS team
Right.
that played in a soccer specific stadium or
Yeah.
that like
he seems, I can't tell how much of this is him just being bold or him just kind of absent-mindedly thinking, well, I now own a soccer team and I will treat them like my NFL team.
yeah. Like nobody tell him.
Right?
Yeah,
Nobody,
and
like just
also-
nobody tell him.
No one show him the operating budget of the Colorado Rapids.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And
Nobody ever let him visit like Audi Field or something like that.
yeah, and it really seems like if this would have been any other MLS team, they probably would have sold Almiron and Martinez already by now.
Yeah.
Right.
But Blank's just like, why would I sell them?
Well, and also the great thing about Blank too is obviously I'm sure Martinez will be gone, and they likely will both be gone next year.
Yeah.
And they likely will be replaced with 2 other completely insane players.
Yeah.
Who
so
may
like,
or may not sleep with other teammates.
oh,
Yeah.
segue. I was gonna go with the segue of I don't know how many of you guys saw the sequence in last night's game where Miguel Almiron looked Ezekiel Barco off wide open on a fast break.
I will say, when I saw the starting lineup, I made a mental note of, the Atlanta players, like Martinez is in the attack. You've got Almiron in the attack, but they isolated Barco and made it so when he plays, he won't have to be out there with any other Atlanta guys. How about that? But then he did actually come on as a sub in the first half. So.
Yeah. What do we think of that? I mean, that's it's worth mentioning. This isn't the first time this has happened in MLS. It's just not frequently reported. I mean, if you've had your head under a rock for the past week, the word is that Barco's been suspended multiple games because of we'll just say a he, how do you want to describe it? Had an
multiple?
encounter with it's been 2 games now, yeah.
Okay.
An encounter with a teammate's significant other. We'll leave it at that. The details are not entirely clear. And last I heard, they're sort of shopping Barco around for a loan. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what there is to say about that, actually.
Well, yeah. What's interesting is like we've heard, like you said, rumors of this happening before.
Jack McInerney.
Yeah, we're not going to name names, but when certain players have been traded in the past, and
Jack
it
McInerney.
seemed like it didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That was why. Now, obviously, we don't really know how many times this has happened, but it is interesting that this
At
has
least once with Jack McInerney.
that this has gotten out. With Barco, I think maybe in a different circumstance, the team or the players around the team would have been able to keep it quiet, and he could have been suspended for violation of team rules or whatever. But the fact that this is out there now, and now everybody is looking, and now when Almiron doesn't pass to him, people are looking into it, whereas in any other situation, they wouldn't really think much of it and move on. It is sort of a toxic environment, and this is the most expensive player in MLS history, and we're already talking about loaning him out, so I think that gives you an idea of what kind of a situation you're dealing with there in Atlanta.
Yeah, and it's a shame for Atlanta because he hasn't had really any kind of problem scoring. Am I right, guys? Anyways, yeah. I mean, we'll see how they deal with that. A loan seems to make the most sense. I don't know. They could obviously deal with the other player involved in the situation, but I mean that would certainly seem like a real raw deal to end up on the short end of that stick, but who knows?
Are you still making sexual jokes, or
the short end of that? No. Did that even sound like a sex joke?
I don't know. I mean, like maybe I'm looking into it again, just like when Almiron doesn't pass to him. But I'm hearing sexual innuendo.
All right, but moving on. One of the players not involved in the All-Star game, really the only one anybody cares about, is Zlatan. What do you guys think of that? I mean, does any of this even matter?
No.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, word on the street is Zlatan did not go to the game because, I mean, the players usually get, I think, in the neighborhood of $15,000, $20,000 to play the game. Zlatan, and again, this is out there. It's not something that I'm confirming. Supposedly wanted a lot more. I don't know how much more. I don't know how much it would have been worth the league to pay him. Honestly, I don't think anybody cared that much. The game was still sold out, and I don't know. Is there anything worth talking about? Is it?
Well,
I mean,
think
certainly the game would have been more intriguing with him there.
The rule where players have to sit out the next game is kind of crazy.
So dumb, man. Like David Villa, he hasn't played in like 5 fucking games. Sorry to get upset about my boy.
I know,
but
when you talk about
we're talking about my son here.
I can't believe this rule survived the of all players, the Liam Ridgewell incident, where it was 2 years ago, I guess, at the All-Star game, San Jose in 2015, 2016, and Liam Ridgewell had like a legitimate injury where he had missed their previous game. It was a thing where he needed a couple more days to recover and missed the All-Star game, and then had to sit out their game that weekend when he was healthy and had fully recovered because of this silly rule. And I mean, players have injuries like that where you need another 3 days to recover. If you aren't healthy for the All-Star game on Wednesday, that doesn't mean you should now be ruled out of your league game on Saturday because otherwise you are faking it. It's pretty ridiculous.
This is a really simple fix, right? If you're not in the 18 for the game before the All-Star game, you shouldn't be penalized. I refuse to believe that there's any team in MLS that's going to be like, we will purposefully sit him for this one game so we don't get the penalty. You know what I mean? Like, he's missing a game either way. Like,
I mean, I'll even throw out. I mean, that would definitely be better. But imagine if Wayne Rooney had been in the All-Star game this year, right? Like, plausible.
Sort of surprised that he wasn't.
Yeah.
You mean the Steven Gerrard rule or whatever?
Exactly.
I think it was Lampard, right?
Oh,
it was both of
Lampard,
them.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They were both named commissioners picks, right? And
MLS is ridiculous.
So imagine if Wayne Rooney were in the All-Star game. He breaks his nose on Saturday and gets 5 stitches, and he is ready to play this weekend, plans to by all accounts. But would anyone have blamed him if he had skipped the All-Star game on Wednesday, like a couple days after breaking his nose? Of course not. But if he had been in the All-Star game and he had sat it out, he then suddenly would be suspended for this match he otherwise would have planned on playing in. And it's, again, like some injuries require players to be out a couple extra days, and they don't want to risk it in an exhibition, and that shouldn't affect their availability for an actual league match.
Did you guys see Chris Wondolowski's tweet today?
That was good.
So brilliant. Did you see it, Seth?
No.
Somebody tweets at Chris Wondolowski that tweet, "It's been 8 years and we still don't forgive you, Chris Wondolowski." And Wando quote tweeted it and said, "Either this tweet is from 4 years in the future, or I did something in 2010 that I can't remember. At least get the date right."
That's good.
What the fuck is wrong with people?
I don't know, man. It's
Like
4 years later, people are still
like,
just
I just
randomly
wanna
like,
tell
It's
you
not
that-
even like the anniversary.
Yeah, the
yeah.
World Cup's over. We're on to the cycle for 2022.
yeah, like we like literally didn't even make the last World Cup. And this dude's still talking about Belgium, like, good God.
I'm still not over that, by the way.
Yeah, we got anything else?
I think maybe we should end with this potential switch of the All-Star Game format to
Yeah.
MLS All-Stars versus the Liga MX All-Stars.
Tell me your dream format, Seth, for the All-Star Game.
Well, first of all, you have to bring back the skills competition.
I think everybody is agreeing with that.
I think we all agree that has to happen.
Why does
we
not happen?
all agree being like me, you, like Ariel Castillo and Zach Goldman.
But, like,
and
why-
Hercules
Who's
Gomez.
opposed to that?
Yeah, but why not? It's
But
like
I'm sure they would say because the players need rest and their schedule's
What?
congested and
Rest?
they might get hurt.
They
Man,
might
have
get
you ever
hurt.
watched one of the old MLS skills competitions? Have you watched the Golasso portion? This is all this shit is. It's like you get a teammate and he just pings balls in from the corner, right? And you literally just have to score a goal in some. Like if there's one year where like McBride tries like 4 bicycle kicks in a row.
I liked one where Jaime Moreno caught the ball in his shirt and then carried it across the line.
oh, that's
Yeah.
a nice one. Yeah.
I mean, there are so many good ideas for
Okay.
the night before that don't involve watching a bunch of
homegrowns.
homegrowns
The home-
play
okay.
against the Tigres U20 team.
The-
like,
the
that was
the homegrown-
underwhelming. Was
who cares about that shit? Come on.
So I had the pleasure.
Thank you, Seth.
I had the pleasure of covering the homegrown game last year in Bridgeview, and I have
Oh.
never been so bored watching a soccer game. I ended up just I was like transcribing and writing a story in the press box unrelated to the game because I had no
Does,
interest in paying attention to
Does
it.
Chris Durkin now have to miss the next league game because he
People
sat
were
the home
wondering
bench?
about that.
Like, this
Or is
is
he just like banned from Chipotle for life?
like
How does it work?
well, first off, the Chipotle Association is gone because I was sad to realize last year that they did not have Chipotle at the match. That was
Really?
the whole reason I went.
Who's it sponsored by now?
I don't think they have a sponsor.
They don't deserve to have a sponsor for it. I don't know. You know,
But yeah,
like-
have a skills competition. Or I've been to the training sessions that they have before the All-Star games. This will shock you. They don't do anything. They just play
obviously.
like
So-
5v2.
All right,
like,
so what's your let's shift gears here real quick.
okay.
Give me your dream skills competitions.
Well, I mean, I love the goalie wars.
Yeah,
Those are
that's,
amazing.
yeah, absolutely. You know what that is, right? You've seen those?
yeah.
I definitely would want the hardest shot.
Of course.
Yeah, you want that just like the sheer like
And like you
dick measuring contestness of that.
I think it should be like a wrestling thing where the reigning champion has to be defeated. So like they fly in Zach Thornton to defend his
Like
crown.
even if they're retired.
yeah.
Yeah, I think like maybe some soccer tennis.
That's good.
Would
That's
be
Oh,
good.
that would be a good one.
Or
Yeah.
what about this? What about like horse, but
With
it's
goals,
like it's
free
like
kicks.
yeah, it's like
Yeah,
trick
yeah.
shots. Like
Yeah, hit the
I do
crossbar.
a bicycle kick. You have to
Yeah.
do a bicycle kick. You know.
That's a good one.
I would just imagine.
What about like most? What about you just get like, have you know like dog races where there's like the rabbit that just gets towed along in front of the dogs? What if you just do that with like a dummy of a defender and then it's just like most violent challenge? So like you just run up to this thing, it's like a little dummy, and you just like you come in at the most awkward angle, exposing as many studs as possible.
I'm imagining just
using-
Kendall Waston beheading something.
Right, like 15-time reigning champion,
I'm also thinking like some kind of either A, celebrity game,
Right.
or B,
like a rock and jock style thing.
Do you
or
get
be
Will-
like-
point
get Will
goal,
Ferrell?
yeah, or B, an old timers game. And I'm talking like
Oh,
the
boy.
older the better.
as old as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like preferably NASL players.
I know,
or
yeah,
older.
like players from like the 1950 World Cup
And then
team.
like the
And,
field,
like-
just make it like
and,
a
like,
100,
Freddie
like
Adu.
160 yard long field, and like 150 yards wide. No water, no stoppages of play. 180 minute halves.
Peter Novak's the coach, obviously.
Just
No water.
we'll just call it. I don't know exactly.
I mean, there are like almost anything would be better than the Chipotle homegrown game between
Formerly
the MLS
Chipotle.
homegrowns
it's not letting it
and the
go.
fuck and like the U20 team from Tigres, like that's who your opponent is.
I like the
come
I like the
on.
celebrity game. You get like the Steve Nashes out there, people like that. He's like the
Totally.
only person.
Totally.
I mean,
Maybe you
yeah.
get LeBron in there.
I feel like
don't
they
know.
could have gotten a bunch of like rappers in Atlanta.
Yeah, for sure.
They could have had a good game this
like
year.
Team Ludacris versus Team Waka Flocka Flame or whatever. You know, like
Oh my God! You could
Yeah.
you like in Atlanta, you could have a full 22 players made of Atlanta-based rappers, and it would be awesome.
Yeah.
what about like an eating contest? I mean, just like what if you just broadened it like off like a hot dog eating contest?
And the
or, like,
winner has to face Clint Mathis for
Yeah,
the
Jesus
grand title.
Christ.
Yeah, I mean, let's just make this beyond.
Cletus.
It's beyond soccer. It's just soccer players doing entertaining things.
Yeah, I mean, you know, or you know what, dude? I'm not saying I'd watch, but I think if like you set up a little FIFA tournament, like the video game FIFA.
Yeah, I mean,
That would be
also
cool. I
a lot of
mean-
these things we're describing happen. Like you see clips of players
Yeah.
playing with themselves in FIFA, or have you seen the live
Playing with
skills
themselves in
competition?
FIFA, Jesus.
Okay, well, you know,
We're
the
talking
live
about Barco again? Wait,
Are we back to sexual innuendo?
is this going on?
the live skills competitions where they replicate the like drills from FIFA in real life. Like,
What if we do like
even that would be?
what if we have like a life skills competition?
Oh, like you have
Like
to
see like who can
balance
like
your bank.
comfort
Yeah.
their partner the most,
Yeah.
or like
Oh, I like that.
like type the best resume, or what about just typing like words per minute? Like who can
Yeah.
type the fastest?
Well, you could combine that with like a speed challenge, like who can dribble the fastest, and then before you turn around, you have to type out a full page.
All right,
Oh,
I've
wow.
got it. You know, like do you remember American Gladiators, the show when we were kids?
Of course.
Obviously.
So what if you made like you know at the end was the obstacle course? They do all these different things, like you fire those foam
Yeah.
darts and all this shit.
Yeah.
What if like you started out and it was like, so you have to like eat 10 hot dogs, then you like sprint through some like flag things, at midfield, like the horse competition takes place or something like that.
Yeah.
Then like 2/3 of the way down the field, then you like pick a cell phone up and you have to fire off like the most offensive tweet you can think of. It's like a social media component, just like who can draw the most outrage from butthurt MLS fans. Then like. And then, I don't know, like you sprint to the end zone, and that's where then, like, on the final run, that, like, robotic dummy starts flying in, and that's when you go in for the, like, 2-footed challenge.
You know, I'm totally fine
And
with
just,
this.
like, just to put a cap on this, like,
Yeah.
if you ever watch Mythbusters, sometimes they'll use those, like, prosthetic dummies that have, like, real human bones and, like, blood and stuff in them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we want. Like, we want to see, like, actual, like, exposed bone and blood and stuff on the dummy.
I would be okay with this not only replacing the night before activities,
game
the game
itself,
itself.
for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
We really don't need to. I think we can all agree that we don't need to see them ever play another European team on their preseason again.
I mean, what if we got like we could even get the Juventus players in the skills challenge? You know,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of. I mean, 2-foot tackle. I mean, I feel like Chiellini.
Yeah,
could,
for sure.
Could be pretty good
for
at
sure.
that. Yeah.
Firing off offensive tweets about MLS, like the European players.
right. Yeah,
That could
this
be-
league is shit.
Yeah.
like I don't really know like what they would say.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know. We got anything else?
I don't. I mean, I don't have anything else. Unless you guys want to keep talking about potential skills competitions.
Do you guys remember Supermarket Sweep? I kind of want to see them
Yeah,
play
dude,
Supermarket Sweep.
Claire and I just watched that the other night. It's on Amazon Prime, and like a couple quick facts about Supermarket Sweep for you. So first of all most of the products were fake.
Of course.
But they were like the hams, for example, were like foam, but they were like weighed down because they did the first like 4 or 5 episodes they did with actual products, and like by the 5th or 6th episode, like the shit was so beat up and bruised that they were just like, we had to.
They
find
would put the hams back. Doesn't it expire? I don't.
Yeah.
These are, I guess, the wrong.
Yeah,
questions.
like there were a lot of products on the shelves that were totally expired and like pushing out of their packaging.
Yeah.
And like the host of Supermarket Sweeps, I saw an interview with him. I think it was actually oral history of the show that I read.
Right.
And he was like, the easiest way to win, and nobody would ever do this, is like you go to like the drug aisle.
That's what I always
You
thought.
get, like,
They're small.
Yeah, you get like hair coloring things and like pregnancy tests or
You
whatever.
go for those
you know, like,
big hams, like it takes up your whole car. It's so
it's
obvious.
for the optics. It looks
Yeah.
so much better when you're tossing hams in there.
I always wonder about the strategy. Like, do you go for the like $100 coffee thing? Also, how they figure out the math there? Like, what coffee they get that's $100?
Oh, like where they give the clue? They're like,
Well,
you know,
it would be more like if you just grinded a bag of coffee, you got $100.
there was like, I love ones where it's like the episode we watched. The
clue is the end. That's like the
right,
grand prize.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
because there are 3 of them, right?
Yeah.
The one that I saw the other night was like the host was like, all right, the best part of waking up is this, right? So obviously it's like Folgers in your cup, right?
Right.
And like these 2 chicks are just like running around aimlessly. They have no idea. They're just like, what is it? Like, what are you know? And they expire the entire like minute, like just unable to like figure out that it's Folgers fucking coffee. They're like, I don't know.
Now you just have to watch Guys Grocery Games instead.
What's that? Is the Guy Fieri one?
Yeah.
I don't want anything to do with that.
It's
Can I- for the
vaguely
last
related to Supermarket Sweep.
For the last 3 minutes of the show, can I play you guys like a 3-minute long comedy routine about Guy Fieri? That's like the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life. Have you heard
Do
it,
we have like
Thomas?
the rights to that?
I'm just gonna play it off. Just gonna play it off YouTube. Do you guys mind or not?
Are we gonna get sued?
I mean,
I'm gonna pull it up.
Just play
Okay.
play us out. Play us out.
Well, no, just keep talking until I get it pulled up.
oh, okay.
Have you ever met Guy Fieri?
I have not met Guy Fieri. Not yet. I don't know if
Yeah, what kind of event could you meet Guy Fieri?
I'm not gonna really do much in the food writing scene now.
Yeah, here we go. It's 4 minutes long. So yeah, this will play us out. I think you're gonna enjoy it though. Oh, there's an ad.
So you'll be here
There's
to
an
help
ad. I'll just mute it for the next 15 seconds.
I'll just turn on.
Are you literally turning the television on right now?
Yeah,
Put
yeah.
the U.S. women's game on.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do.
yeah.
Rose Lavelle is starting for starting in 11 months.
Here we go.
State Farm.
Can someone please explain to me what the hell Guy Fieri ever did to anyone? Y'all know who I'm talking about, the celebrity chef? People shit on that dude all the time. And as far as I can tell, all he ever did was follow his dreams. Do you understand? People are horrible to a television personality, and he didn't do anything wrong. Here's what he did do, America. He started a company where he hires everybody. He pays more than minimum wage. He gives health benefits before he has to. He has a non-profit where he gives pretzel making machines to schools so they can fundraise. I know that one sounds like I made it up, but I swear to Christ it's true. He works with Special Olympics athletes, and if you need a little more sugar with this medicine, he also officiated a gay wedding. Yeah. But because he has flames on his shirt, everybody shits all over this dude like he's a member of Nickelback. And by the way, what the hell did Nickelback ever do? What? They made 40 million bros happy? Yeah, you don't want them walking around pissed off. That's how we ended up in this mess. That should bother all of you. And look, I get it. I don't want to hang out with Guy Fieri either, okay? I know he looks like a Hot Topic manager moonlighting at a Fridays. But he didn't do anything wrong. Well, what else has he done, Shane? I'm so glad you asked. He goes around the country to small businesses and gives them free advertising on a national platform on a weekly basis. Advertising those small businesses could never afford themselves with his own television show. But because his hair looks like he was electrocuted while drinking Mountain Dew, people act like we need to saw his head off and put it on the internet. Meanwhile, y'all can't get enough of Anthony Bourdain. And he seems like the kind of dude that would be mean to dogs. So I don't understand what is happening. What does he do? So I put on Rolling Stones t-shirts and I tell food courts they suck. Come on, man. Like, if you had to choose between being stuck in a foxhole with Anthony Bourdain or Guy Fieri, you're going to pick Fieri every time. I am still doing this bit. What's Bourdain going to do? I'll tell you. He'll be like that dude in every World War II movie who sucks the whole time. Then when the Nazis show up, doesn't do his job, gets a bunch of good soldiers killed. Meanwhile, Guy Fieri's over here earning new nicknames like El Fuego. Picking up live grenades, throwing them back, saying dope shit like welcome to Flavor Town. And he knows he's dying on that beach in France that morning, but he's there fighting. And what do y'all do? You shit all over him just because he had his sunglasses on the back of his neck. I think it's awesome that he has a racing stripe painted on his fridge. Love it if Banksy had painted it. And look, guys, I know I look like the kind of dude that would defend Guy Fieri.